Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is part 2 in my 2017 beauty needs and nopes for the year. Today's video I'm going to cover foundations, color correctors, concealers, and powders. I also have a couple skincare items that I forgot to include in my first video, so as always there will be timestamps below in case you want to skip ahead to any certain area. If you didn't see my skincare video, there's a giveaway at the beginning of that for Hot Tools. I will have that linked below. I'm not going to repeat all of that stuff, but it's right in the beginning of the video if you didn't see that. So quickly touch on the skincare items that I left off are always obviously my Shiseido facial cottons. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be Shiseido or Shiseido. Again, I'm not sure. This is a Japanese brand and I don't speak Japanese. I do use these every single day. The cotton pads are fairly large, so I do cut them in half. It doesn't take very long. I cut like 3 at a time. Last me a really long time, and they are not expensive when you compare them to the drugstore options for how many you get when you cut those in half. I've mentioned those a bunch of times in my skincare videos. I think they're like $10. I think they went up from 9 to 10 or something, but I do love those. I can't believe I forgot to mention this last video because I didn't mention a mist. A mist isn't necessary. It is nice to get some moisture down on your skin because whatever steps you follow up with, your skin will better absorb them because the moisture on your skin is going to help draw those other ingredients in. This has been my favorite for quite some time. This is the Josh Rosebrook Hydrating Accelerator. It smells like a raw cocoa scent to it. I really like this spray. It's really nice. And then last but not least, I forgot to mention my washcloths. You may think that it sounds so random, like how big of a difference could washcloths or cleansing cloths, whatever you want to call them, make a difference. And I typically travel with my own just because I find hotel ones and even the ones that I have that go with my towel sets not very soft and kind of scratchy. And so what I do is I buy this size. They've been sold out forever now. And I did get this with the cleansing balm from Jordan Samuel. These are the larger size. This is the 8x8, and I believe this is the 5x5. So I typically use the 5x5 size. This is the 8x8, so I could use this actually about 4 times. I'll use one corner, one corner, one corner, just so I don't have to continually wash them, but don't keep reusing this. This side I will use in the morning, just take off my cleansing oil, and then there's like no makeup on it. I leave it to hang up, and then at night when I use my cleansing balm to do my first cleanse, I use this again to remove everything. This side, now not all cleansing cloths are made equal. This side is really soft and plush, and this side is a little grittier. This makes removing my makeup just pleasant. It doesn't scratch again. It feels really soft toweling it all off. Same thing in the morning. Now here's another brand that I bought off of Amazon that were relatively the same price. This feels like one of those like ShamWows that you'd use on your car or something, and granted some of these microfiber washcloths you can use on cars, but this one is not textured like this one, and it doesn't feel the same. While this is soft, in a pinch when I needed to do my laundry, our laundry facility isn't right in our apartment, we have to go down to a different floor, I used one of these, and it was like really scratchy on my face. I use these now when I'm doing swatches and I do finger swatches that I wipe my finger on this. But I really love these. These are from the Rag Co. So I originally bought mine on Amazon, but Tara Babies mentioned that she found them directly on the Rag Co site for even less, but you did have to buy them in bulk. I will have the Amazon site listed below as well as the direct link to the Rag Co. and then also to Jordan Samuel's larger sizes like this. You can't find these larger sizes. I think these might be made by the same company. Don't quote me on that, but they both still have the same little hang tie, both the same stitching, same material. And the way I clean these, this is important, do not wash microfiber washcloths with anything because these cling like static electricity to things. So what I do is I just do a load of laundry on hot water with these. I put a little Tide Pod in, or if you use the whatever detergent you use, but do not put fabric softener in them because you want them to stay kind of like stuff will attach to them. You don't want them to feel too soft. And then I put a little bit of bleach in with them. I just run them on their own. I dry them on their own, and then I fold these and I keep them in a basket underneath my sink, and I also keep a little hanging door on the inside of my cabinet where after the next day when I go pick up another one, I toss the dry one from the night before in and take a new one out. if that makes any sense. These really will make a huge difference, and it's one of those things, just like the facial cotton, it makes your experience a lot more pleasant, I find. Now let's get into foundation. So somewhere here on the screen, I'm not sure where, I'll figure it out in editing, I will have listed what all of my foundation shades that I wear are. That way it'll just give you a point of reference for the existing shades I'm going to talk about. So I have a lot of picks for these products, and the reason why is because, again, I test so many products. So all of these products I reach for on different occasions. So I'm going to explain that to you, because you'll be like, hey B, you have like 45 foundations. And I'm going to explain to you, again, depending on what kind of coverage I'm going for, what kind of finish I'm going for. If I know it has to be something that lasts 12 hours versus if I know, oh, I'm only going to be out about 5 hours, because there are some foundations that I love, but they look like crap after like 4 hours. So I will explain why I like them, and then you can make your own decision based on that information if any of those sound like something that you would enjoy as well. I'm going to go from lightest coverage to my most full coverage. Just for reference, I'm 36 years old and my skin type is dry. I prefer more of a light to medium coverage. There are some days where I'll go more full coverage, but I prefer to be able to see some of my skin through my makeup so it doesn't really look like a heavy cakey mask, because sometimes when I've done really glammed looks, I've had my makeup professionally done, it looks stunning in pictures and on film, but when I'm close up or look at myself, I barely recognize myself, because it almost looks like I could dig my makeup off, and that's just not my personal preference. I know some people love that. I just don't, because I don't like to be able to feel what I'm wearing. So first one up is actually what I'm wearing today, and I'll tell you like my little secrets behind wearing this. So this is Renewed Hope in a Jar Skin Tint. I originally saw Jackie Aina talk about this, and I was like, okay, I want to go see if they have my color. And I went down, and there's not a ton of colors, but I do find this kind of is one of those self-adjusting things. Since it's not a ton of coverage, if you find a shade that's in your, realm, it will blend in pretty well, because this just basically amounts to a tinted moisturizer. And when I say it's light coverage, it's fairly light coverage. I got the shade 3.5 Sand. So what I like to do with these lesser coverage BB creams and foundations is I will put it down on my skin just to get like a base, kind of like even out my skin tone, and then I'll go in and kind of like pinpoint conceal or conceal more where I need it. So sometimes when you first put something light like this on, if you're used to a little heavier of a coverage, you might be like, no, I don't like that. But just kind of finish your concealer or color correcting or whatever you need to do, and then gauge if you like it. So what I did for this base is I just went in with this. I went in with my concealers, which I will talk about in a minute. I did just my under eye. I haven't been doing those like highlighting anymore. And then I just went in and spot concealed a few areas where I do have some like redness on my skin right now. I find best for that is I love that cat airbrush that's behind me right here, and I do use a foundation that I will talk about in a minute, but that's what I find works best for me. So when people are up close to me, it still looks like my skin, but I've just concealed certain areas that I needed more instead of, going heavy in the whole face. I also find that I don't get that typical cake up around my nose, which I hate, and I don't get it on my chin either, which is important to me. So I would just go get a sample of this from Sephora to see if this is something you like, because again, this is pretty light, but it is moisturizing, but it's not, it's like it says it's a whipped water gel. So, and it does have SPF 20 in it. It's not something that's very oily, and it's not something that should make oily skin worse. Now these are my favorite light coverage foundations. So I would call this very like minimum tinted moisturizer, and these are going to be light coverage. My favorite drugstore option for that is the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Cushion Foundation. If you guys have been watching me for a while, you know that the L'Oreal Lumi Foundation is my favorite from the drugstore. Obviously L'Oreal owns them. They also make the makeup for Giorgio Armani, and I believe I have to go back and check the ingredients, but this is like an 80% match for the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. This is a lot lighter coverage. I never use the sponge in there. I know you're supposed to, but it really weirds me out. So I just take a flat top kabuki brush, or you could even use a sponge, and I dip that in there. These things always weird me out because I always want to smell them to make sure they don't smell moldy. Does anybody remember those like lip glosses when you were a kid, or like those under eye concealers with that little ball, and I feel like it would start to smell weird? That's gross. That grosses me out. But I do like this if you're looking for a lighter coverage but luminous still. Two more of those cushion foundations. This is the Kogendo. This is a Japanese brand, and I love this. This is their Aqua Foundation. I'm in the shade 113, which is weird because on the description it calls this warm, and I wouldn't really call myself warm or neutral, but this actually really works. And same thing, I'm in 113 on this. The thing that's a little different for me about this, and again, I don't have a ton of experience with cushion foundations, is the way you get this up instead of having that sponge is you push this little button and then it comes out of this little hole. So it's not really like that sponge just sitting, in case that weirds you out like me. And then I'm gonna butcher this name, Suluwasu. This is a Korean brand, and I really like this. When you buy this compact, it comes with a whole backup refill on this. So you just refill this insert, you take this out, and again, I don't use a sponge because it weirds me out. I like taking a flat top kabuki in here and putting this on. So days that I'm just like running errands, sometimes I want something really quick, really light, I just put on one of these. Now back just to this. This is the Aqua Foundation by Kogendo. This is very luminous, very light. It reminds me kind of like my MAC Face and Body, except not as dewy as this one is. So this one will give a little bit more of a natural finish while still being luminous, but not like, hey, I kind of look like I'm wet. This is MAC Face and Body. This has been one of my favorite foundations since I've been wearing makeup. I can put this in my airbrush and airbrush this on. This looks great with a sponge. People say sometimes that this can be built up to medium coverage, and I've never experienced that. It's just always pretty light coverage to me, but it doesn't look cakey. This photographs beautifully. There's no SPF in here, so you won't get flashback. This is a water-based foundation. It just looks beautiful, and I find a lot of makeup artists that I've talked to that do a lot of bridal work that like MAC products say that this is one of their go-tos for that. Next is a new find for me this year. This is the Ket Cosmetic Hydro Foundation. So I did that video with Sheila from Ket Cosmetics, the owner, and Alphonse from Muse Beauty. I will have that link below if you guys want to watch that. I love this foundation. For so long, this is all I was using, and I was like, I really need to test other products that I have sitting there waiting, but just by default, anytime I needed something that was beautiful and quick for me to do, I would reach for this. So the consistency of this, now Hydro, this is a water-based foundation as well. The difference is this is more pigmented than this, and this is not as luminous as this one is, which I find good because lately, for some reason, if I don't lightly powder this one, I've been starting to get oily right here, which is kind of weird because I've never had that issue before. I can't tell if it's because of the weather change or what it is, or maybe it's just that my product is old because, as you can see, oh, well, you could have earlier. I've had this one for quite some time. So I was kind of like fidgeting around trying to figure out what color I was in these because they go in O's, which is olive, and then R's, which are ruby, which are going to be reds, and these are going to be more of like your olive, obviously undertones, olive to kind of warm. So originally I was wearing the R3, and when Sheila airbrushed it on me, it looked perfect. But when I took it home myself and I was trying to do it myself, I think I was going too heavy with it because obviously I don't have the skills she does. And I could see a very distinct line where you could see it was pink and then like my skin. So then I tried mixing in a couple drops of O2, which is olive level 2, and I could still see a difference. So the last time I saw Alphonse, he actually told me here, just use the O3 because I am more neutral, even though I can get some redness in my face when I rub it, just because that's the way my skin is. I'm so fair. And you can see I get kind of blotchy here. He said that I should try the O3, and this is pretty much a spot-on match for me. So if you wear the Face and Body in N2, O3 will be a good match for you. What I did today after I put this on is I put 2 drops in the airbrush gun, and I just went over and pinpoint concealed what I need to, and I love that because it's literally like where that saying comes from, your skin looks airbrushed, because instead of swirling it on with a brush or stamping it on with a sponge, it's coming out in these little pixelated kind of pieces of pigment that literally just kind of blur, and you can go in and spot conceal and you won't see a very thick like you could sometimes with certain concealers. So I love this. You can use this with a sponge or a brush or in an airbrush. I love to use this best in my airbrush or with a sponge. And now this one is more new to me. I am going to review this for you guys, but I actually really like this. And I've seen people seem to be really torn. People either really love this foundation or they really hate this. This is the Ordinary Colors. This is their serum foundation. Now this is pretty light and it does very much remind me of MAC Space and Body. So if you hate this foundation, you're not going to like this one or this one likely. But this has really nice coverage and it feels moisturizing. It feels like there's nothing on there, and for the cost of this, you really can't beat it. Wayne Goss did a whole video where he put in the description box what colors are like what, so I will have that link below if you have any questions about what shade you should get. And I will have a full review on this eventually. Now into what I consider my medium coverage foundations. My first is a drugstore pick, and this is the L'Oreal True Match Lumi. I am in the color N3. I like it that this foundation has warm, neutral, and cool undertones in it. It makes selecting them a lot easier. My biggest reason why I don't like drugstore foundations isn't because I'm a snob. Well, don't get me wrong, I can be, but I mean, a good product is a good product. I don't care how much it costs. Is that I don't like it, and I don't know, some people have tried to tell me that their drugstore has testers. I've never seen that, so I don't like it that I can't put the foundation on my hand. Most of the drugstores around me, I'm pretty sure, don't offer returns on opened makeup. So it's not like I can buy all these, say they didn't work, and then bring them back into Walgreens. They won't take them back. And I don't really want to be doing that to brands anyway. So I tend to find that I end up with a bunch of colors that don't match me, and it seems to be a waste. But this foundation I love. It is extremely similar to Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, but I actually prefer this one over the Luminous Silk. Next is a find that I found last year with Caroline when I was at the Hourglass store, Caroline Hirons. This is the Illusion Hyaluronic Skin Tint SPF 15. This is very moisturizing, very nice on my skin. If you have dry skin, normal skin, and you like kind of more of a hydrated finish, this is extremely nice. I'm in the shade Ivory. Next is my Natasha Denona Face Glow. I'm in the shade 40. The 40 is a touch too dark for me, so sometimes I mix in a pump of the 10 in there. But if I blend this a little more, like I typically don't bring my foundation down my neck because I try to just match my foundation to my face. But this one I do need to blend down a little more. This, it's so weird because I read reviews online for this, and some people really just hate this foundation. They say it's gross and it's oily, which I cannot understand because I love it so much. But my best friend was just here for a while visiting. She's like, I did not like that foundation. She didn't think it had enough coverage, which for me, I would call this medium to full because, again, I don't like foundations that are too full coverage. The way I put this on is I put a pump on the back of a palette, I brush it on with a flat foundation brush, and then I blend it in with a sponge. That's my favorite way to put on most foundations, because if I put it on with something like a buffing brush, if you have dry patches of skin, the brush is going to lift up those areas and kind of agitate them. It's almost like going in with like a light sander, if you think about it. So then you can see those flakes. And if I necessarily go in with just a sponge, sometimes the sponge picks up way too much of the product and I'm not getting the coverage I want. So for this foundation, I paint on a light layer, I go in and blend it in with a sponge, and it's beautiful. This is the most luminous foundation I own. If you like glow, you would like this. If your skin is oily, they say that you can use a mattifying primer underneath it, but I don't believe it because even on me, this borders on almost being too glowy, but it is one of my all-time favorites. Almost like pudding. It's like a gel pudding that foundation reminds me of. The smell is slightly odd too. It's not gross, but it's not really good. It's just weird. Next are my 3 all-time favorite BB creams, and I consider these to be more medium coverage. This is the Dr. Jart BB Beauty Balm. The thing that sucks about this is they only have 2 pitiful shades. And I don't mean, obviously, that my shade is pitiful, like I'm pitiful. I just mean it's pretty pitiful in this day and age that a brand only would offer 2 shades. This is a Korean skincare brand, and I do like a lot of their skincare, so I guess that maybe their main market in Korea is more on the fair side, but I just think if you're selling internationally, though, that you should probably take that into account and maybe make some more shades. And again, I know it comes down to shelf space and all of that, but at least make them available online with testers in store. This is the shade Light Medium. These do run extremely gray. I find that with a lot of Korean BB creams because it does make them look a little more natural. depending on your skin tone. Then again, if you're neutral, it can make you look natural. If you're extremely warm, this may make you look kind of sickly. But this is really luminous. And I actually learned about this from Tara Babies. She was always wearing it in her videos, and she's fair like me. And I was like, okay, let me give this a try. And I really do like this. And it's really moisturizing, very hydrating. The next one I have is the IT Cosmetics CC Cream. I am in the shade Light, and sometimes maybe I could go for medium. I do have both, but they actually look extremely similar to me, but I always go for Light instead. This has a very strong lemon scent. If I put it on with any of my brushes, it's almost like this oil in the brush. It's really hard to clean out, and if anybody has tried this, they might know what I'm talking about. It does contain SPF 50, which is some nice added protection. It's not enough on its own because of how much you do need, so always wear sunscreen underneath this. This does start breaking up on me at about the 4-hour mark. This isn't something that I could put on, go to an 8-hour day of work, and come back and not have like a patchy nose or around the cracks of my nose or on my chin. But if you're lounging around the house or you just want something really quick, I find the BB cream's easiest, or even like these cushion foundations, because I can quickly put it on, fill in my brows a little bit, and be out the door. Next one is Herborian. Now this says Korean Skincare Therapy Paris Seoul. So what this is actually, because I got to sit down with this company, is this is a Paris-based company, but they base all of their skincare and cosmetics in Korean ideals. So they're split in both areas. This is their just regular BB cream, and I have it in the shade Claire, which is fair. They only have 3 shades in this. They did say that they're working on coming out with some more deeper shades. The ETA on that, I don't know. The one shade that they do have that's deeper does have like a bit of an orange undertone. This gives you, it's called the baby matte finish, they're calling. This is more on the matte side, not completely matte, but it does look very natural on the skin. And when I put this on, it's really hard to tell if I have anything on. My products layer nice on top, and this does last me all day. This is a really nice product. I just hope that both of these brands, and even them, I know they've been saying working on it, come out with some more shades. Next for me is going to be the foundations that I consider full coverage. This foundation was a newer find for me in the year. This is the La Mer, the Soft Fluid Longwear Foundation. This smells terrible. Terrible. Like a rotten port. I said a drunk old person. That's what this smells like. I don't like this. But the coverage is beautiful. I did demo this in my Get Ready With Me. I am in the shade Neutral 22, which is kind of gray. And it is a touch too dark when you're in person against my neck. But I didn't want to buy the other one because this was expensive. This is not a necessity. If it's in your budget, I say go for it. I don't like La Mer skincare. I loved their original, like the powder. One of the sales associates tried to tell me that they did not reformulate it, but I've heard that they have, so I have to check on that, because the powder that I do have is like a lifetime supply. It's a lot, and I don't use that much powder typically. But this is a nice foundation if it is in your budget, and I do find this to be more full coverage for me. This one I do have to put a light setting of powder on, or I can kind of look oily, which again is odd for me right around this area. The next one up is the Kevyn Aucoin, the Etherealist Skin Illuminating Foundation, and I am in the shade EF07. This is pretty full coverage. The shades on these I find very difficult to figure out because there's so many. This is a foundation I think it's best to go in the store and get matched because otherwise it's kind of confusing. If you know your match in other foundation shades, you can go on to that on Sephora, where they have that color IQ, and just put in what brand you wear and what shade you know you are, and then they'll tell you what other ones you are. If you know how to wear, they have that. This is more of a matte finish though than this. Even though this says it is illuminating, but not extremely glowy like this one or this one. I do really like this foundation, and it lasts a really long time on me. 2 drugstore options that I have to mix together because I don't like either one on its own is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow Foundation. I have the shade 202, and then I mix a little drop of the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte in the shade, same thing, 202, I believe, right? 202? Where does it say it? No, I have 103 in this. I don't know how that happened. But I mixed these two together to give me a luminous finish, but this one is almost a little bit too dewy for me. So I just mix a drop of these two in, and these are really nice foundations at the drugstore. I've heard great things if you're extremely oily, just this on its own, or if you're extremely dry, just this on its own. I just prefer to mix these two. Again, with the Ordinary, I've been testing these at the same time. This is their coverage foundation. So my actual favorite way to wear this is if I'm going for more full coverage, is I like to put a little bit of this one down because it's hydrating, and then I'll go in the areas I want a little more coverage and wear the coverage foundation, because this is high coverage. You do need to make sure that you are moisturized. I only like to put this on, again, I'll paint this on lightly and go in with the sponge and blend it. If I pick it up with the sponge, I find I'm not really getting a lot down. And if I just go in and buff it on, it tends to cling to areas and can look a little too full coverage. And this wears really well for me. And again, I've heard people, these are very polarizing. People either love them or they hate them. For the cost, I think these are two of the best foundations on the market in that price range. Obviously, actually, I don't even know if there are any other in that realm. But this is a really nice coverage foundation, and the price is right on this. Now, I typically don't like matte foundations, just because since I am not old, but I'm older, I want my skin to look hydrated and glowy. That tends to look a little more youthful than looking like a dried up raisin or something, you know? So I typically don't go for matte foundations. But this Fenty Beauty, I did my review on this line, and anytime I know that I'm going to like a concert or something where I know I'm going to be really warm and I really want my foundation to last, I go for this. There is a learning curve with picking your color because it does dry down darker than it initially appears, and for me it does slightly oxidize throughout the day. In my Fenty Beauty review, I touched on the difference between dry down and oxidation. I know the difference. This is doing both of those. Drying down, basically oxidation is a chemical reaction, and that's something that happens throughout the day. It's not something that immediately happens. So I did notice by the end of the day that this was even a touch darker than me. But I am in shade 150, and I do like this foundation. Next is the Hourglass Vanish Stick. So this is something most of the time, if I'm going for something really glam and I want really like the most coverage that I have, I'll reach for this. Now, I've seen people draw these like huge lines on their face, and again, whatever makes you happy, do. But when I was talking to the Hourglass store, when I was down in Santa Monica, they said the way that you're supposed to apply this is touch a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, and maybe they said a dot here, I can't remember, and then blend it out. So basically, like, it looks like a little jack-o'-lantern you're making with the eyes. If you put too much of this on, it's going to look extremely heavy, it's going to look cakey, it's going to crease underneath your eye area, on your smile lines. Less is more with this, and it's extremely pigmented, and it is expensive for how much you get, but a little goes a long way. I literally have had this foundation stick for I don't know how long, a long time, and I still have a crap ton left because I don't paint it on really heavy like that. My favorite way to use this is to put this on, and then I like to blend it out with my Clarisonic base brush or any kind of brush. I don't like a sponge with this really. Next are my Cat Fix creams. So I had heard Wayne Goss talk about these, and he actually even had this in his favorites as well. These are awesome. I have 3 different foundation shades down here, a color corrector and 2 blushes, which I'll talk about some of these later. These creams do come in neutral. I find this one to be the best shade for me, which is N3. And then I do have N2, and then this is R3, and the R3 is slightly pinker on me. And you can even see on camera, almost this one looks a little more yellow or olive tone, but it works really nice. These are really affordable too. I believe each one of these is $15, and then you can stick them in a palette if you want, or you can get these little trays and put them in. Again, each one is sold individually. If you're going to get those, I highly recommend buying the Esom T45 foundation brush. So this is Taklon Synthetic Bristles. I've talked about this in one of my favorite videos as well, and you may ask what the difference with some of these foundation brushes is this one is thick, it's a paddle shape, and it has give on the bristles. Where some of mine are either so short and kind of dense, they don't flex with your face a lot, or like the contours of your face. So I just dip this in and I start kind of like patting it on. And again, in that video with Sheila Kett, the owner of Kett Cosmetics, you can see how she applies this. And at first you like dip your brush in and you're like, am I picking anything up? And as you just start patting in, all of a sudden it's like the redness and the discoloration that you may have just kind of disappears. These are a wax-based foundation, so they are somewhat water resistant because the wax will repel water. Not to say really that you should go swimming in them, but if you're out in the rain and things like that, or sweating, that helps. I love these foundations though. They're super easy. And when I want to do, again, like a glam airbrush, I will put a little of this down. I'll set it with a little powder like Sheila recommended, cat powder, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then I'll go in and airbrush my makeup on top of that. And I love the finish it gives. So many videos. If you guys look back on any and you look and think, oh, I like her foundation. If you look all the way at the bottom of my description, I always say what I'm wearing. And you can be able to see what it looks like in a lot of my videos. The last two foundations I have, I've been doing a lot of testing of foundations, and these are the ones I reach for all the time. This is the Clé de Peau. This is the Silky Cream Foundation. I am in the shade 020. I love this foundation. It is pricey, and it is thicker, but it looks really beautiful on the skin. And it says Silky Cream. It's not, I would think it would be extremely luminous. I wouldn't call it that. I'd call that more of like a satin finish, satin natural. And then I also love the Cover FX Natural Finish Oil-Free Foundation. Again, oil-free is never a selling point to me because I'm dry, so I like oil in my products. But this does give an extremely natural finish on my skin, and I get a lot of coverage out of this. So again, what I do is I paint it on with my foundation brush, blend it in with a sponge, and this is very simple. My products lay nicely on top of it. I'm in the shade N25. Foundation fail for me. This is the Chanel Lift Lumiere. So this looks beautiful on the skin. It looks really, really nice, really, really pretty. Every time I wear this, I break out. Every time, it never fails, I break out all over my forehead. And I thought it was skincare or something that I was testing until I went and started reading some reviews on this foundation. That's a huge complaint with so many people, that they're breaking out. I don't know if it's, I'm not allergic to any of the sunscreens in here. I think it's probably the fragrance in here, maybe. I'm not quite sure, but my skin goes nuts with this, so this is a fail for me. Now let's talk about color correctors. So remember when everyone was like color correcting with like 45 color correctors? If you need that many, you need to put down the makeup and pick up the skincare, because no one's face should need every single shade in the rainbow of color correctors. That just doesn't make any sense. But color correcting some darkness that you may have on your skin, or redness or blemishes, it's all going to be about color theory. So whatever is opposite on the color wheel. So if you have redness and you're trying to neutralize that, you want to go with green. Now, this is a professional palette. This is the Graftobian. I've used this to death, and I actually broke my lid off of this. Graftobian is a professional makeup company. You can buy these shades individually, because if you're not a makeup artist, nobody needs all of this, because your one skin tone is never going to be able to utilize all of these. But I can color correct underneath my eye with the peachy shade. I do correct redness or blemishes with this green I use often. And when I've done some of my friends' makeups and stuff, I've used some of these other colors, and I can even contour with some of these shades. So I'm going to list them and where you can get them on the bottom. I just get the color that works for you, because this palette has some highlight shades and color correctors. And if you're deeper skin tone, some of these will work for you. Graftobian makes some excellent products. They're extremely pigmented because, again, it is meant for the professional market, but I do love this. And again, do not buy this palette if you're not a pro, because you do not need all of those colors, but you can buy them individually, and I love the consistency of this. Lays well under products. The next one is the Becca Under Eye Brightening Corrector. This is a thick product. If you go in really heavy with this, it's going to crease. It's going to look weird. Now that I have no nails right now, I've been rubbing this in with my finger and it works well, but I actually just take a fluffy concealer brush and I swirl it in a little, and then I just kind of like brush it on lightly, and it looks really nice and really natural. This is not going to work for a wide range of skin tones, though. This is going to work for somebody a little fairer than me to slightly deeper than me. So the window is very small on that, because again, you need to look at that light peach color and who that's going to color correct for what color your circles or whatever is underneath your eye. One that does have a much wider range is the Ket Cosmetics. They have color correctors. This one is in the lightest shade that they have, and this one works really well too. Again, much more affordable and a bigger color selection. Now on to concealers. These are the 4 favorites that I've ever tried. So NARS, I used to use the custard one to color correct, and I found that that was a touch too dark. So they expanded their color range selection this year. I believe it was this year, and I got the Creme Brulee 2.5. This is much more up my color alley. So I actually put a couple dots of this underneath my eye, and then I mix it in with the Tarte Shape Tape in Light Neutral, because this one is a lot more matte and I prefer something kind of in the middle. I can use this on its own, and I can use this on its own too, but I just prefer these together. What I don't like about this, which some people love, is this giant wand. I think it's so you can do those huge triangles really quickly. I don't do that. You do get a lot of product in here. I really like these 2 mixed. The next is the Herborian. This is the Touch Pen, and I use the shade Dior in this, which is their darker out of the 2 light shades that they use, because again, I don't like highlighting my face anymore. I mean highlighting with lighter concealer or foundation. I just want to use something that's going to color correct or add a little more coverage under my eyes. This one does have one of those kind of odd sponge tip applicators, but I really like this. And on the days that I'm wearing more natural coverage like this or these cushion foundations, I will just kind of dot a little of this on and blend it out. It looks very natural, very hydrating. I really like it. And you click this right here. Then if you're looking to spend a decent amount of money on a concealer, this is the Clé de Peau. I have it in the shade Beige. This is a stick foundation, and I don't feel like it works well if you draw this on. This is one of those foundations you need to warm up with your finger and kind of pat on, and it looks extremely natural, very nice coverage. And last but certainly not least, powders. So this has become my favorite setting powder. This is the Ket Cosmetics. This is a Ket Set powder. It's only available in 1 shade. It's not a heavy powder at all. You can literally not see it on the skin, which is what I like, because there's this idea that you always have to set your foundation, and there are some makeup artists that will tell you you always have to set it. I hardly ever set my foundation ever when I was doing my makeup, because if you think about it, if you're dry and you're putting foundation, something that has moisture in it, on your skin, and then you put in powder, the powder is sucking up that moisture. It's part of the reason why it's setting it, is because when something is wet, it moves around a lot easier than when it's dry. So I like this because you cannot overdo this powder. So I can toss this in my bag and retouch, and I won't ever look cakey, and I really like that, but it also sets my makeup for the day. So I use this almost every single day now on my powder brush. I just put this all over my face, and I love this. And again, this is pretty affordable in the realm of what these products are, and again, that is a professional brand. Another powder I enjoy for all over face setting is this Charlotte Tilbury, the Airbrush Flawless Finish. Again, I have my trays in, so sorry if I have a lisp. Or actually, I'm not sorry, I have a lisp. This is in shade 1 Fair. This is just a nice light all over powder that's not going to be too heavy. It doesn't give any coverage, but it does give an airbrushed look on the skin. Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powders. I have a whole video on these. I will link it below. I feel like this is one of those products you either love or hate. Some people, when you read the reviews on these, they're thinking this is supposed to provide coverage or this is going to be a highlighter. No, this is a finishing powder. The whole meaning of these powders is to basically take the light and kind of reflect it back in different ways. So you're not supposed to see these necessarily on the surface of your skin. They make a bunch of colors. If you have questions about what these do, I will link it below. But almost daily, this is my second one of these because they do last a long time. This is the Ethereal Light one. I like this actually, even though it's not meant to set, since I don't like a heavy powder underneath my eyes, I do use this. And I can dust it all over my face, and I really, really like this. This is my second one of these, and they last forever. Last but not least, this is my all-time favorite powder foundation. This is the IT Cosmetics Celebration Illumination Foundation. This is what I put on my nose if I'm not airbrushing, because I find my nose just does not like to hold on to foundation. And it's not that it's oily, because it's not. I don't know if it's I touch my nose a lot. I don't know what it is, but my nose never holds on to foundation. So I find if I use like an eyeshadow primer on my nose and then foundation, it'll stay, or this. So I'm in the shade Light in this, and I love this because it does not make your skin look really dry, and I can actually buff this all over my face if I want really quickly and go. This is nice. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. I'm going to have several more videos coming out in the different categories like bronzers and blushes and highlights and all of those things, just so I can give each product the time that I think it's due to explain why I like them. I'd love to hear down below what some of your favorite base products were, or concealers, or color correctors, or anything like that down below, and some fails for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and I will see you next time.